What's good, Culturalists? It's your man CJ Williams today with another No Limit list. We did 97, 98, and 99, so naturally 2000 is up next. We're ranking the 5 albums from No Limit records that dropped in the Y2K. Leave a like if you're digging the content and subscribe so you don't miss future lists. With that out the way, let's get to it. Number 5, Master P, Ghetto, Postage. Going from a historical 23 releases in 1998, 15 drops in 99, then 5 in 2000, that should let you know where the state of the tank was for the new millennium. Another dead giveaway will be the drop off in quality, as Master P's 9th album was a major miss for the Colonel. P was on a nice 4-album run with Ice Cream Man, Ghetto D, The Last Don, and then Only God Can Judge Me, ranging from at least very solid to classics. But that momentum came to a screeching halt with Ghetto Postage. The entirely too long 23-piece track list is weighted down with below average production and some of P's worst lyrical performances. With all due respect to producers Carlos Stevens and XL, both are respectable in their own right, but the entire Beats by the Pound was severely missed. Horrific records like Soulja Boo, Do Rags, and My Babooski were enough to even make diehard Tank fans jump ship. If you were hoping for No Limit staple acts like Mac, Mystical, or Fiend to save the day, you were left disappointed as many of your favorite soldiers had already exited the label the year prior. With that being said, we're not going to throw the entire album away, as glimpses of better days were present. Case in point, the single Bout That featuring Silk the Shocker was pretty dope, and the alleged Big Timers diss Pockets Gonna Stay Fat was a banger. When addressing rival labels or former soldiers, you typically get a spirited P, and this was no exception. Throw in the sinister Hush and the Isley Brothers sample would always come back to you, and that'll about do it for the good records. So 4 or 5 out of 23, not a good ratio at all. Number 4, Mr. Marcelo, Brick Livin'. If I told you No Limit Records was basically the music version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, would you believe me? Stay with me for a second. The same way Marvel kicked off the MCU with solo films from household names like Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk, then followed by more obscure characters like Ant-Man or Guardians of the Galaxy, in hopes that them being a part of the MCU will be enough to draw people in. It's the same thing P did with No Limit. You had acts everybody was familiar with, like P, Mystical, or CMurder, who would open the door with strong solos in hopes that the Tank stamp would be enough for fans to check out Full Blooded, Little Italy's, or Mr. Marcelo's of the label. Introduced to No Limit fans on the 504 Boyz album, Marcelo would release his one and only album on the label, Brick Livin', just 2 months later in July. A fresh voice to the Tank, Marcelo showed promise, but the album comes short of being a complete body of work. Painting vivid pictures of life in the NO, records like the title track, You Never Know, and Hold Up work well. Good cameos by OG soldiers like Mac and CMurder are balanced with newer but talented acts like Ghetto Commission and DIG, showing a world where maybe No Limit could pull off a successful transition. Other records worth revisiting are Let's Do It and Live It Up, produced by arguably the Tank's most slept-on beatmaker Kino. Unfortunately, the project didn't produce a hit and therefore did poor commercially, barely cracking the Billboard 200, only making it to number 172. While we give props to the elder brother of rapper Currency for giving a valiant effort, in the end, Brick Livin' wasn't the standard many had become accustomed to in the years prior. So where the MCU strategy worked in the past, relative unknown still doing numbers, this was yet another sign the run was basically over. Before we get to the top 3, although only 5 dropped, there were a ton of albums that were supposed to be coming soon. DIG, Sam, Alexis, among many others. Do we need a list of the top 10 albums we never got from No Limit? Feels like a dope list to me, but I want to know from y'all if it's worth making. Sound out in the comments below. Number 3, 504 Boyz Goodfellas. The first release of 2000 from No Limit was the long-awaited 504 Boyz debut. Originally a 3-man group comprised of Master P, Mystical, and Silk the Shocker, by the time it finally released, it basically turned into a compilation of acts on the label. Mystical appears only 3 times while Silk is present for 6. For what it's worth, the 3 songs Mystical is on, P and Silk are also on there, so it's probably safe to assume that those were part of the original recordings for the project. Would have loved to hear more of that because those 3 joints, Roll Roll, Wody, and Wobble Wobble, were pretty dope. The latter would become a hit and push the album to number 2 on the Billboard 200. Take that, No Limit naysayers who said it was over for P after Beats by the Pound left. And if we're being honest, although it featured a ton of new names you likely weren't familiar with, the project actually turned out super straight. Big Toys, Soldiers, and If You Real, Keep It Real were bangers, with the latter being one of P's best verse. We told you earlier in the video, when it's time to touch on old members who left, P's motivations turn up a notch. His verse went too hard.
You ain't no soldier, boy. Take that tat off your stomach. Nigga talking about he love me, but bitch, you love my money.
YouTube's gonna hate if I play it, but take my word for it. Go run that after this video. Anyway, another notable record was the Neptunes produced D-Game featuring a young Pusha T going by his original rap name Terror. Glad he changed that. And for some reason, P re-released a few joints that already dropped on previous albums like Mercedes I Can Tell and Mac Say Bruh and Beefin'. I guess P felt more ears deserved to hear those records, and looks like he was right. I Can Tell became a classic thanks to many hearing it for the first time on this album. P was out here playing chess. Adding those joints would have been even better had he scrapped a few others so that the album didn't overstay its welcome, but it's still a good project. We also want to touch on new member Crazy, who sounded eerily similar to a hip-hop icon, but we'll elaborate more on that on another ranking. Number 2, CMurder, Trapped in Crime. C's third album in consecutive years would be closer to his debut than it would be his sophomore, which many consider to be a miss. Looked at as an L for most, maybe the No Limit label refresh actually helped some. We will put CMurder in that category as his third project benefited from chemistry with new producers, quality features from label mates, as well as appearances from non-No Limit artists. Staying with the former point for a second, this is the best produced No Limit project of 2000, excluding our number 1 album, which barely featured any in-house producers anyway. More on that in a second. Kino once again showed his ass on Joints What You Bout, featuring a scene-stealing Mystical, and Where Do We Go From Here with Silk and a flawless 16 from Mac. Non-No Limit collabs with artists like Da Brat, the Eastsiders, and Fat Joe also work well. It's almost like the pressure of following up his debut got to see on Bossellini, where on Trapped in Crime he went back to the basics. Other records to check for are Too Much Noise, Young Thugs, and the introspective Damned If They Murder Me. The standout record, however, would be yet another re-release in the form of Down For My Ends. Originally featured on Snoop's Top Dog album, the song makes much more sense here and would propel Trapped in Crime to a top 10 Billboard spot. The classic single would go on to be sampled several times, not only the beat, but also the hook. You can hear the instrumental everywhere from sporting events to fraternity functions. One of the last songs produced by Beats by the Pound lead man KLC, this was most definitely one for the books. Number 1, Snoop Dogg, Last Meal. No Limit saved the best for last, as the final release of the year was easily the best. Snoop's album will be a commercial success, with registers ringing to the tune of 397,000 albums sold in the first week, eventually crossing the platinum mark. Seen as one of Snoop's best projects in his 30-year career, The Last Meal sounds good today as if it dropped yesterday. If you want to see where we rank this album in his catalog, make sure you check out that Snoop Dogg albums rank video right here. If you're a No Limit fan, check out our list from the years 97, 98, 99, and 01. We put them in a playlist to make it easy for you. All we ask is you hit that thumb up and subscribe and show some love. Until the next time, it's your man CJ Williams from Culturalist Theory. I'm out.